So if you were to cut yourself, say, 20 feet underwater, your blood wouldn't actually look red.
No, it really wouldn't.
It would look black. Or, at best, maybe this dark, muddy green color.
Which is a deeply unsettling visual to imagine, for sure.
Right. And that terrifying, highly unsettling visual fact is actually the master key to understanding why almost everything you assume about the color of the ocean is just a complete lie.
It really shatters this fundamental assumption that we walk around with every single day. I mean, we just assume a leaf is green because it's packed with a physical green chemical, chlorophyll.
Yeah, we trust our eyes.
Exactly. We trust our eyes to tell us the biological reality of what things are actually made of. But the second you step into the oceanic environment, well, that trust is entirely misplaced.
So we're taking a deep dive into the source material you provided on Oceanic Optics today. And the core premise here for you listening is genuinely mind-bending. The ocean isn't actually blue.
Not at all.
And to make things even weirder, almost none of the brilliantly blue creatures living inside it are blue either. In fact, blue is arguably the absolute rarest pigment in all of nature.
Which just sounds wrong when you think about the Earth being a blue planet.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Let's unpack this, because I really need to understand how my eyes are being tricked on such a massive planetary scale. Like, where do we even start with this?
Well, we have to start with the canvas itself, because before we can understand how the animals are faking their colors, we need to understand what the water is doing to the light in the first place.
Okay, the water itself.
Right. So when sunlight hits the surface of the ocean, we usually perceive that light as white or, slightly yellow. But visible light is actually a tightly packed spectrum of all different colors, just all traveling together.
So a rainbow, basically.
Uh-huh.
All the colors of a rainbow moving as one single beam of light.
Precisely. But they don't all travel with the same amount of energy. Light travels in waves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the distance between the peaks of those waves, the wavelength, that determines both its color and its energy.
I vaguely remember this from high school physics.
Yeah, so on one end of the visible spectrum, you have red and orange light. Those are long, stretched-out waves with a lot lower energy.
What?
And then on the opposite end, you have blue and violet light. Those are short, tightly packed waves that are packing a huge amount of energy.
Okay, so sunlight hits the surface of the water with all these different energetic waves mixed together. What happens then? Does the water just, reflect the blue sky? I feel like that's what we're all taught.
Yeah, that is a super common misconception, but no, it's not just reflecting the sky. The water itself acts as an incredibly aggressive, selective filter.
A filter.
Right, because water molecules vibrate at very specific frequencies. And it just so happens that the vibrational frequency of a water molecule perfectly matches the lower energy frequencies of red and orange light.
Oh, wow.
So when that red light enters the water, its energy is almost immediately absorbed by the water molecules. It basically turns into a tiny bit of heat.
It just gets swallowed.
Completely absorbed, like within about 15 to 20 feet down, almost all the red light has been stripped out of the sunlight.
Which goes back to the blood thing.
Exactly. That is why your blood looks black down there. There is literally no red light left in the environment to bounce off the blood and travel back to your retina.
So it's a filtration system based entirely on energy.
Yeah.
It's almost like, okay, imagine a nightclub,
Yeah.
right? And the ocean is this giant, incredibly strict bouncer working the door.
Okay, I like where this is going.
So all the colors of light show up to the club at the same time.
Mm.
But the bouncer just hates red light. So he kicks the red light out right at the entrance, maybe lets the orange and yellow get a little further, like to the coat check.
Right, they lose their momentum pretty quickly, too.
Yeah, but the blue light is a VIP. The blue light has the energy to just cruise right past the bouncer, travel all the way down to the VIP section at the very bottom of the ocean, and then bounce all the way back up to the surface.
That analogy actually gets right to the physics of it. What's fascinating here is that the ocean water isn't adding a blue dye to the scene.
It's not tinted.
Not at all. If you scoop up a glass of seawater, it is perfectly clear. We are simply witnessing a grand game of subtraction.
Wow.
The water just destroys the warm colors through molecular absorption. So when you look out at the Pacific Ocean, you are literally looking at a graveyard of red, orange, and yellow light. Blue is just the sole survivor of that journey.
Which completely flips how I think about a trip to the beach now.
Oh,
I'm just seeing the leftover light that managed to survive.
exactly.
But that really sets up an incredible stage for the actual marine life. Because if the water is just playing this grand subtractive trick with light, what is happening with the fish? because the source material highlights all these vividly colored creatures like coral reefs, rays, tropical fish that just glow with these brilliant neon blues.
Well, they have evolved to exploit that exact surviving light. And they are pulling off an optical illusion that is just as profound as the water itself. Because almost no marine animal possesses a true, authentic blue pigment.
Wait, if they literally do not have the pigment,
Yeah.
how are they faking it so well? What exactly is happening on their bodies?
Yeah.
So let me stop you there. When I think of pigment, I think of paint. I think of actual ink.
Right, and that's how we normally understand color. A pigment is a chemical compound. It's a tangible, physical substance whose molecular structure absorbs certain wavelengths of light and reflects others.
Like the chlorophyll in leaves.
Precisely. If an animal had a true blue pigment, it would mean its body was literally manufacturing a specific chemical dye that intrinsically reflects blue. But in the marine world, that chemistry is basically non-existent.
But wait, I see these fish at the aquarium. If the blue color is just a trick of light bouncing off them, why doesn't a brightly colored fish change color when it swims at a different angle? Shouldn't a blue fish shimmer like a hologram or prism, depending on where I'm standing? They look solid blue.
That is the absolute genius of what they've done. They've traded chemistry for advanced physics. Yeah. Instead of evolving a chemical dye, these animals have evolved microscopic, highly complex structural layers built directly into their skin. We call them iridophores.
Iridophores.
Right. They are specialized cells packed with nanometer-scale stacks of crystals.
Wait, actual crystals embedded in the skin, like biological crystals.
Essentially, yes. They're usually made of a substance called guanine. Now, to address your hologram question, if these crystals were all lined up perfectly parallel to each other, like a flat mirror, the fish would indeed flash like a hologram depending on your angle.
Like a shiny trading card.
Exactly. But nature is way smarter than that. Inside these cells, the crystal stacks are arranged in this chaotic, multi-directional array. They face every possible angle simultaneously.
Oh, I see. So no matter where you're looking from, there's a tiny crystal positioned perfectly to bounce the light back at you.
Correct. But the real magic is what happens to the light when it hits those crystals. Because of the exact mathematically precise distance between the layers of these crystals, they trigger a phenomenon called constructive interference.
Constructive interference. Okay, you're going to have to break that down for me.
Think about ocean waves. If you have two waves traveling toward each other, and their peaks perfectly align when they meet, they merge into one massive wave, right?
Yeah, they compound.
They amplify each other. That is constructive interference. But if the peak of one wave hits the trough, the lowest point of the other wave, they crash and cancel each other out, leaving flat water. That's destructive interference.
So these microscopic skin crystals are basically wave manipulators.
Yes, they are. The gaps between the crystal layers in a blue fish are spaced at the exact nanometer distance required to make the short, energetic waves of blue light perfectly align peak to peak.
Oh, wow.
So the blue light bounces around inside the skin, amplifies itself, and shoots back out. Meanwhile, that same specific spacing causes the red and yellow light waves to crash into each other out of sync, completely canceling them out.
That is staggering. So the animal isn't blue at all.
Not even a little.
It is literally acting as a microscopic house of mirrors, actively filtering the ambient light right there on its own skin to spit only the blue light back out at the observer.
That's a great way to picture it.
So if you were to somehow take those tiny microscopic structures on the fish's skin and just crush them up, flattening the architecture entirely, what would happen?
The blue color would instantly vanish.
Just gone.
Completely. You would be left with a dull, transparent, or perhaps slightly brown tissue. There would be no blue powder left behind because there was never any blue dye there in the first place. The color exists entirely in the architectural manipulation of the light.
Which brings us to the actual creatures doing this, because the sources show that this isn't just some rare trick used by one obscure family of fish. This is a widespread hack.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Take the surgeonfish, for example. It's got this incredibly iconic, vivid blue body, heavily contrasted with these stark black markings, and a bright yellow tail. You know the one?
Oh, yes, very famous fish.
It looks painted. But its entire body is just a static display of this constructive interference you're talking about.
Exactly. The surgeonfish is a prime example of static structural color. Its iridophores are just fixed in place. They act as a permanent biological reflector specifically tuned to that azure blue.
Just constantly bouncing that VIP blue light back.
Right. It's a brilliantly effective way to stand out in an environment where blue is the only light available to be seen anyway.
But what if an animal doesn't want to be blue all the time? The sources highlight the blue-ringed octopus, which is famous for being one of the most dangerously venomous animals on Earth.
Truly terrifying little creature.
Yeah, and most of the time it just looks like a mottled, sandy-colored rock. It blends right in. But the moment it feels threatened, these glowing neon blue rings just flash across its skin like a neon sign turning on.
It's an incredible defense mechanism.
But if they don't have a chemical pigment they can just pump into their skin like ink, how on earth are they turning the physics on and off?
Well, cephalopods like octopuses and squid take this structural engineering to an entirely different level. The octopus doesn't just have fixed iridophores like the surgeonfish does. It actually has muscular control over them.
Muscular control over crystals.
Yes, imagine those microscopic crystal stacks we talked about. The octopus has tiny radial muscles physically attached to the cells containing these crystals.
You're saying it literally flexes its muscles to change the shape of its skin crystals.
Exactly that. When it's relaxed, the crystal stacks are bunched up, and the distance between them doesn't produce that blue constructive interference. It just reflects dull ambient light, so it blends into the sand.
Okay.
But when a predator approaches, the octopus tenses those tiny muscles, stretching the iridophore like an accordion.
Oh my God.
It physically pulls the crystal layers apart until the gap between them hits the exact nanometer distance required to amplify blue light.
That is pure science fiction.
Right.
It is mechanically tuning its skin to broadcast a warning signal, using the surviving blue light of the ocean against its predators.
It really is a dynamic feat of nanotechnology. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it highlights a fascinating concept in evolutionary biology called convergent evolution.
Convergent evolution. Because different animals arrived at the exact same trick completely independently.
Yes. Take the third major example from your sources, the blue-spotted ribbon-tail ray.
Oh yeah, the one with the polka dots.
Right. This is a cartilaginous fish, so it's evolutionarily very distinct from a cephalopod like the octopus or a bony fish like the surgeonfish. It's relatively flat, tan-colored for camouflage on the seafloor, but its back is covered in these intensely bright, permanent neon blue polka dots.
The contrast on that ray is insane. I saw the pictures in the source. It looks like someone took a bright blue highlighter and dotted it across the piece of sandpaper.
And yet, it uses the exact same physical mechanism. Nature faced this fundamental problem in the ocean. How does an animal become brightly colored in an environment where chemistry, like actually synthesizing a complex blue pigment molecule from scratch, is incredibly metabolically expensive and difficult?
It's just too hard to make the dye.
Right. So the evolutionary answer, across multiple completely different branches of the tree of life, was that it's actually easier to engineer millions of complex, light-bending, microscopic prisms in the skin than it is to just invent a chemical blue dye.
Nature chose the physics hack over the chemistry test because it was the path of least resistance. Evolving nanotechnology was literally easier for these animals than evolving blue ink.
It really forces you to reevaluate what you consider simple in the natural world. Structural color is basically nature's ultimate workaround.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because every time you think you've figured out the rigid rules of the natural world, like, okay, vertebrates simply do not produce blue pigment. There is always a rebel, and the sources throw a massive curveball right at the end.
They do. Just to remind us that biology rarely deals in absolutes.
Amidst all these animals building tiny prisms and stretching crystals to fake it, there are exactly 2 reef fish that can actually produce real, authentic blue pigment. The mandarin fish, and its very close relative, the spotted mandarin fish. They are the anomalies.
It's wild. Out of all the thousands of species of fish, let alone mammals, reptiles, birds, and amphibians, these 2 tiny, incredibly ornate reef fish are the only known vertebrates in existence to possess true blue pigment cells.
That is a staggering statistic. The only vertebrates on the entire planet. And the mandarin fish itself is stunning. It looks like it's wearing this elaborate psychedelic robe. It has these swirling patterns of orange, green, and this incredibly deep velvety blue.
It's beautiful.
To bring it all together with an analogy, the surgeonfish is basically wearing a dress made entirely of mirrored sequins. It only looks blue because the club lights are hitting it and bouncing off the mirrors at the exact right frequency.
The sequins being the iridophores, yes.
Right, exactly. But the mandarin fish, on the other hand, is wearing a thick cotton sweater that has been permanently dyed with a deep chemical blue ink. It doesn't need to play games with the light. It doesn't have a million microscopic prisms in its skin. It intrinsically, chemically is blue.
Biologists call these unique pigment cells cyanophores. And unlike the mirrored crystals, a cyanophore produces an actual chemical compound that absorbs the red, yellow, and green wavelengths and inherently reflects blue. No matter how you crush it, stretch it, or look at it, the chemistry just remains blue.
But why them? I mean, if every other creature from the massive blue whale down to the deepest sea creatures had to rely on the physics of light scattering, what specific evolutionary pressure allowed these two little fish to unlock actual chemistry?
This raises an important question, and honestly, that remains one of the great lingering mysteries of marine biology. We don't fully know what genetic mutation or unique environmental pressure pushed the mandarin fish to endure the massive metabolic costs of synthesizing a true blue chemical.
Because it's so expensive for the body to make.
Very expensive. It serves as this beautiful reminder of how difficult making that specific pigment actually is. The rest of the vertebrate kingdom looked at the biological cost of making blue dye and effectively said, no thanks, we'll just build prisms. The mandarin fish is the only one that paid the chemical toll.
Wow. So what does this all mean for you listening? If you're listening to this deep dive, preparing for your next trip to the beach, or watching your next nature documentary, I want you to look at the ocean differently. Your vision is not an objective truth. It is a highly subjective interpretation of physics.
Very true.
The ocean itself isn't some vast expanse of naturally blue water. It is a massive energetic filter that swallows the low-energy reds and yellows, leaving only the high-speed blue light to actually reach your eyes.
And the life within it is just a masterclass in adaptation. Evolution is remarkably practical. It will always find the most efficient path to survival, even if that path involves turning an animal's skin into a microscopic physics experiment.
We are constantly being delightfully deceived. That brilliantly blue fish darting across the reef isn't painted blue. It is catching the ocean's surviving light and mathematically bouncing it back at you. It fundamentally shifts how you appreciate the natural world. It isn't just biology we're looking at. It is dynamic, real-time optical engineering.
It is a masterpiece of deception. Which leaves us with something quite profound to consider regarding how ecosystems are actually built.
Oh, I love a good hypothetical. What should we be thinking about after this?
Well, consider the interconnectedness of it all. We know that water molecules, by their very chemical nature, absorb low-energy red light and only let high-energy blue light survive into the depths.
Right, at the bouncer at the club.
Exactly. And because of that specific physical property of water, an entire planetary ecosystem evolved highly complex, energy-intensive crystal nanostructures in their skin specifically to catch and manipulate that surviving blue light.
The animals basically built their bodies around the rules that the water said.
Exactly. So imagine a scenario where the fundamental chemistry of water was just slightly different. What if water molecules vibrated at a frequency that instantly absorbed high-energy blue light at the surface and allowed the heavy, low-energy red light to reach the darkest depths?
No.
If the ocean were entirely illuminated by red light, would the entire structural blueprint of marine life have evolved differently? Would we have octopuses, rays, and fish are covered in completely different microscopic prisms, specifically engineered to perfectly scatter the color red just so they could be seen in the deep?
An entirely red ocean filled with animals faking the color red with nanotechnology just to survive the visual landscape. That is an incredible thought to walk away with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning what you see, and we'll catch you next time.